I'm feeling incredibly confident for today's video because this is a subject that I feel that if I was in college, I could graduate with the highest masters in at all time. And that is, of course, you read the title, Situationships. Now, I was going through videos that I wanted to film last night because I'm back home in Ireland, and my mom was asking me, like, what am I upcoming filming? And I was, telling her Mr. Beast deep dive, Shane Dawson deep dive, I was doing all these things, and I went, what is a situationship? And she literally was like, are you serious? Like, the amount my family have had to hear me yap about situationships, the amount you guys have, oh, please. You all deserve like a shirt. You know when you go to like Disneyland or Universal and they have those shirts that are like, I survived and then insert ride here. Literally, you could say that about like, I survived Adam's situationship and hearing about it. Now, I feel incredibly qualified with this because in my entire life, I am 22 years old. I have never, ever been in a proper relationship. I've only ever been in situationships. Now, I feel that I could count the amount of situationships that I've been in on one hand. Yes, for sure. I think confidently I could say that I've been in 4, maybe 5. And that might be, something you may laugh at. I know there's a lot of people in the crowd. There's a lot of people in the crowd who have probably been in a lot more than me. But let me tell you something. With a situationship, it doesn't take many to break you. Okay? Now, first of all, today's video I'm going to have fun with because I'm detailing the rise of situationships, what really is going on with them, why situationships are so popular. And mama, I got facts, I got receipts, and it's all starting to make sense to me, okay? Now, I want you to play along with me. If you have ever been in a situationship, please comment down below. And also, if it is not too invasive for me to ask, please give me a detailed rundown of your situationship and how it ended. Because I love reading this kind of stuff because it makes me feel better about the ones I've gone through. So please, if you're willing, this is a safe space. This comment section, right down there, right down here, safe space, babe. Please open up. I want to read them so fucking bad. So let's get into it. So, I actually do have notes, by the way. I wrote this on the Dallas flight. And my God, I was like listening to the Tortured Poets department, like researching about situationships, like true love exists one day. So, with situationships, you're not dating, but you're more than friends, okay? There are no labels for the most part. You don't even give the label of a situationship. It is confusing and it is the modern way of dating, okay? And it's not just me. Again, this is dating in 2025. Situationships are more popular than relationships. Is that a true fact? I don't know, but I said it confidently, so it sounds like it. At least it is with me and my friends. At least it is with me and my friends. Goodness. Now, I want to deep dive the reasons for situationship culture rising because it hasn't always been this way. Hookup culture has always been a thing, right? Well, not always, but it was a big thing, right? And it still is. But hookup culture and situationship culture are different. And the reason that they're different is because a hookup, even if it's on multiple different days, right, is just a hookup. A situationship has there's an emotionalness to it as well from either one party or both parties, okay? Now, the reason for this we're going to dive into is dating apps, COVID, and basically the options that we have now and the fact that we're so overexposed to so many people online. So again, a situationship is a romantic connection that lacks clear labels, commitments, or a long-term direction. That is the definition of a situationship. It's somewhere between a friendship, a hookup, and a relationship. It's somewhere between that. And each situationship is different. Each is different. I don't know why I'm doing my Trump hands again. Each situationship, the most beautiful situationship in the entire world. Why have I done that in so many videos now? Now, with situationships, I think a majority of them do include hooking up, but there are some exceptions to that. A situationship is basically everything of a relationship, but you're not in a relationship, and this person is probably sleeping and having a situationship with multiple other people at the same time. There's a gray area around it, right? And it is either intentionally, out of fear, convenience, or being avoidant, okay? Now, when we talk about dating over the years, I think when we look at the, 70s, 80s, 90s, because that's really the furthest back I can go on my Google searches, I would say that dating was very, very, very much so a very big commitment thing. You were committing to it if you were going to be dating. You were dating with purpose. You were dating to marry. You were dating to be engaged. You were dating to start a family. You were dating to move away. You were dating for a purpose. All of those times, right? It was very exclusive. You would be exclusive with the person you're dating. Once you start dating that person or go on a couple dates or whatever, you're kind of official and you don't see other people. And then that's literally how it worked, okay? Now, hookup culture was always a thing, the 80s, 90s, 2000s. But again, when it came to, it was either relationship or hookup. There was no gray area. There was no situationship. Now, in the 2000s, this was the rise of kind of casual dating and friends with benefits and hookup culture. And we see this literally in the media at the time. There was the movie Friends with Benefits. And so many movies would focus on this hookup narrative, friends with benefits narrative. And as we can see, we're starting to approach the era of situationships, but we're still just classing it as either you're in a relationship or you're hooking up with people. And I think the 2000s were really, really, really the rise of that. And then in the 2010s, we were given the god-awful dating apps. We were given things like Tinder and Bumble, which basically changed dating forever. And people really don't like to acknowledge this, but dating apps have ruined dating. Because ultimately, these dating apps don't want you to date someone. I don't care that Hinge says that it's designed to be deleted. They are a company that want to make money. How are they going to make money? By keeping you on the app for longer, babe. And once you realize that, the sooner you'll get off those apps. But I agree with still being on them because, again, if everyone's doing it, then you may as well be a part of it, to not get left behind. I have such a love-hate with dating apps. I have them on my phone, but I do not use them. I have the option, but I don't use them because I don't care. Like, I honestly cannot do dating apps anymore because you'll match with someone. Hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Where are you from? I'm from here. Where are you from? I'm from here. Oh my God. Yay. So what brings you to Tinder? I'm like looking to date. Silence, ghosted, unmatched. And the reason for that is because if you will not give that person what they want, luckily, they only have to swipe off and you're gone. They will never remember you again. And there is hundreds, thousands of other options. The options has basically changed dating because no longer are you dating and, you kind of really can focus on that person because there are so many options now. You know what I mean? And I think as well, dating apps have ruined dating because when you date someone, not everything about them is perfect. We are flawed people. But when you're on a dating app and you get the ick or you don't like something about someone, if you were in person years ago, you kind of want to work through that. But on dating apps, you're like, oh, I'll swipe and see someone who doesn't have that. And then you're trying to find the perfect person who doesn't exist, which is why everyone lingers on dating apps for life. And again, people have found their forever partners on Tinder, on Bumble, on Hinge, on Raya. It does exist. And people have gotten married. They've started families. But with the amount of people on the app, statistically, with the amount that have had that, I would only imagine that there's a huge divide. You know what I mean? So your success story does not determine everything. No shade. So again, I'm so anti-dating apps. And again, you just have to literally conform to them. Now, what's really interesting was in the 2010s, dating apps blew up. And then again, people would meet up for dates and then it would kind of just turn into like hooking up with someone and then you wouldn't see them again. So dating was very, very, very passive in the 2010s. And then from the 2010s to kind of the 2020s and really, 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 I would just say the rise of like hookup culture and dating apps and stuff like that. However, post 2022, whenever we were in isolation from COVID lockdowns, people really never came back from how much that changed people personally. And what I mean by that is people that were in relationships were now, they couldn't be together. They couldn't be intimate together. They couldn't have an emotional connection in person anymore. Some people were in different countries from their other spouse for an entire year. So the idea of a relationship changed very much so completely. We were now, not having that expectation of an in-person relationship anymore because we're not allowed to be together. And people really relied on dating apps during this time to meet people. But obviously, you couldn't meet people, so you would just have online relationships. So online relationships boomed in COVID, and a lot of people are still in those relationships and they've now met in person. That's beautiful, whatever. But it was such an interesting time where people were getting in relationships before they had even met the person. And no judgment, by the way. I am a child of the internet. I have no judgment. But I'm saying that forever changed dating. It forever changed dating. And I think as well, people not being able to have that intimacy or being able to go on dates or have those social interactions for those couple years of lockdown, I think changed the way people act towards each other as well. And we became a lot more, isolated. I was trying to think of a better word there, but we became more isolated in general, which therefore ended up changing when we were opened up to the real life dating world again. So again, the reason that they're rising is because dating apps are giving us too many options, which again gives a general consensus of like fatigue also, but also just kind of lets us know that there's so many options that we don't have to settle for this one. Social media as well, during the time of COVID lockdowns when we were like isolating, gave a false sense of closeness because we could be on FaceTime for so long and all these different things that I think when we were back in person, it forever changed dynamics within dating in general. And I think as well, because people were so used to, only speaking to their person online, ghosting became really popular in COVID lockdowns, where people would literally just stop a relationship and never message the person again. And this carried on to when we would be able to go in-person dating and then someone would ghost you, or you would go on multiple dates and they would ghost you because they were used to doing it to people online that they would never have to meet. Therefore, this is one of the biggest things of situationship culture, which is being ghosted. Now you can see where that came from. And also, I think because people have ghosted people and they've also been ghosted themselves, it's given a level of kind of vulnerability and scared that someone will ghost you, which has kind of changed dating in general, where people will pull back or be too intense when they are now dating, which again, because of isolation and COVID times and dating apps and everything of being alone, has really affected how we move forward with traditional dating, which is where situationship is starting to breed from now. Again, COVID made it very online, which basically meant that people were able to spend every single second together because of FaceTimes and stuff, which created such intense, immediate intimacy and almost a short-term buzz that normally would come crashing down. Therefore, when we're dating in person, we're used to really quick, rapid-fire relationships with the people that we had online. And then that doesn't translate into an in real life normal relationship in the traditional sense. Therefore, people get bored and they want another person, which is why you see people doing situationships for 3 months and then moving on to someone else. Okay. So I think as well, there is something to kind of put into this with the economy. I think with the way that a majority of people know that they're not going to be able to buy a house or buy a property or whatever, it's kind of changed the way like my generation are spending because we know that that is unattainable. So we are in the rise of like trinket eras where I'm not going to be able to afford a house, so I may as well buy the latte that I want every day and also buy 10 Labubus. Guilty. Our attitude towards money has changed because there's no more long-term goal for a lot of people my age because the economy is dying by the day. So when you're thinking of like settling down in houses, that is like settling down with a partner. Now that that's no longer really attainable for a lot of people, or they think it's not attainable, it mostly isn't. There's no real desire to be in a relationship anymore for a lot of people. So being non-committal to people is kind of ideal for a lot of people now. Also, I think it's important to note, I have 2 more things. I think that people my age are more aware of relationships are not as important as what people made them out to be. Like, specifically for women, you don't need a man. And I think that it was always ingrained in society that, the woman would be the stay-at-home mom and the dad would go out working. But I think now we're finally approaching a time where we are, appreciating people staying in school longer, educating themselves, working on their personal growth. And I think that in the era of people working on their personal growth, it's made people not want to attach themselves to an entire person fully committing. And you know what? That's the point where I agree with. That makes sense. That makes sense completely. But the biggest point, which is something I saw on multiple different Reddit threads, and my God, this makes so much sense. A majority of people in my generation grew up with their parents divorcing, cheating on each other, or staying together and having a very unhealthy relationship in front of the kids, which has kind of been ingrained in my generation of people's heads about that is what relationships are like, which has made people not necessarily desire settling down with someone and instead having, quick little flings. That makes so much sense, doesn't it? That makes so much sense. Okay, so here's the thing with situationships. Because they're normally short-lived and normally are love bomby, they are incredibly addictive, and you can be thrown a rod of a very little thing and you blow it up, and then you almost become obsessed with the person you're in a situationship with rather than a normal dynamic between a relationship, because any slither of attention, you need it. It's addictive. And I think as well that the emotional toll of kind of like the what are we is really affecting people my age, and I can speak around like looking at my friends and myself. I think as well that we're in the rise of situationship culture and ghosting culture, and I think that the impact that ghosting has on people is kind of like a lack of closure that really affects people and will in the long run. I also think that situationships halt people emotionally. I think that they really affect people emotionally, and I think they stump a lot of people's growth momentarily, which is very unfortunate because I think we're going to be dealing with situationship culture for a very long time. So anyways, I think as well that we are in an era of kind of being a lot more free with labels. And I think that this extends to relationships. I think people my age love the idea of not having to label a relationship because then it doesn't make it so intense. So it allows people to explore options without any pressure. There's no label. And I'm going to tell you something. I need a label. What are we? You know what I mean? That is me. So, how is it affecting dating moving forward? I would say that there is a majority of people that are not dating right now, but are just kind of hooking up, and that works for a lot of people. And if that is you, good for you. It doesn't work for me. I get too attached to literally anyone that I'm with. But I think that it's also made people like me and a couple of my friends kind of not want to date anymore or even attempt. Like, if you in a normal setting would have flirted with someone, you're no longer not doing it because you know that if it ever turned into anything, it would probably be a situationship and it would, affect you. So that's also very unfortunate. And I wonder like how many people in my generation are actually going to like end up with like long-term partners. It's also affecting trust issues because again, there's so much cheating is it considered cheating? Is it not in a situationship? Leads to trust issues. And I think as well that dating online and dating culture of like e-dating has become so big that it just has affected in-person dating so much. You know what I mean? And also I think that with situationships, it's more so, I don't know how to phrase this. Situationships have almost become like a lazy way of committing because you can commit for 3 months and feel good about the fact that you're committing if you're the person in a relationship, but then you break it off and you feel good not being in it anymore. But then there's another person affected by that. There's always one more person more in it than the other. I think as well that situationships are kind of like a cultural moment. I wonder if where we go from here. You know what I mean? I wonder where we go from here. I think for as long as dating apps aren't necessarily, they are the villain, but everyone's on them, so you've got to be on them if you want to date. People don't meet each other out and about anymore. Third spaces where you would meet people don't really exist anymore. It's all online, which is affecting dating. Even whenever I go to a bar and you want to go up and talk to someone, there's now that barrier of, oh, it's almost weird to do this. Whereas in the past, that's how people met their fucking husbands. I don't know. I need to know your opinion on situationships. Have you ever been in one? Please talk to me about it down below. And let me know if there's any situationship victims out there, because number one, I will put my hand up. Let me know. Let's talk down below. I appreciate you being here, and goodbye.